and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Good morning and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me, in the middle of the madness that is March, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
Hey, Kyle. Yeah, we said this earlier in the week, but this has got to be one of the best weekends I've ever experienced in sports. I mean, becoming a newfound kind of pseudo fan of F1. I was checking out qualifying this morning while doing a little workout, and then we have the practice of the Xfinity cars going right now, which I think is really going to help looking forward to this Sunday's race because we got to see no break, full throttle racing in practice. It's going to be an all out, ready to go kind of mini Daytona, just like we expected. Also, though, with plenty of contact happening, I'm assuming if you can get that caution prop, bet the over once again.
Yeah, we'll have to dig for that. I bet we can find a prop number for sure.
Yeah,
it's a great time of the year. Obviously, March Madness, the first weekend is amazing sports weekend. Plus, we got NASCAR. Plus, we got the first race of the F1 season. Plus, we still have basketball going and hockey going. It's starting to really be competitive with like kind of that opening couple weeks of college football and NFL.
Yes.
But as you mentioned, we're here to talk about the race at Atlanta, the QuickTrip 500, 400?
Yeah, 500.
500, Folds of Honor, QuickTrip 500 at Atlanta. And as you mentioned, you were watching the Xfinity stuff this morning and got some interesting nuggets. It's, I was seeing a lot of kind of joking Twitter and what, but, some people that were trying to, cap this race or figure out this race for DraftKings based on old Atlanta courses. And you just, that's simply not the case. This new track, as we mentioned in our preview show, is very different. It's a big bank. It's like a vert ramp. And as you mentioned with the Xfinity stuff this morning, foot to the floor, just go.
Now, the one thing I will note, like obviously during their practice runs, they're running in packs of 4 to 6 cars, so it'll definitely change the dynamic when you have all 37 or 38 vehicles that entered tomorrow's race and the races that are today. So I'm assuming you're going to see a lot of lifting going into the corners by people that are running a few cars behind the lead pack or in the middle of this train. But it does look from practice very similar to that of like a Daytona where you have 2 grooves and whichever one has the better come off the turn is going to be just skyrocketing past the other one. And so we're going to get super speedway type racing at a smaller track, and it is going to be glorious.
Yep. Very excited to see how this pans out. And with that being said, let's jump in and let's look at some DraftKings stuff because boy, do we have some fun to build this week. I think we have some interesting opportunities. I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to build it. I think I want to build it a lot like I do if it was just Daytona and just load up in the back. But with it being a shorter track, do we want to try and, make sure we get a dominator in?
Yeah, see, that's the one thing is I don't know if the dominator is going to come into play here because even at like a Daytona 500, you don't see a guy normally run half the laps from first. So I don't know how much of the race you're going to see somebody be able to lead. And a lot of people, if this does run like a super speedway, they don't even like to run at the front for the majority of the race. They like to run behind, save gas and all that kind of stuff. So honestly, I'm okay putting in like one guy that's starting inside the top 10, hoping they stay there the whole day. But I don't think that you're going to be able to kind of peg one dude as, he's going to lead 60, 70 laps here.
Yeah. Yep. So it sounds like we need to just load up on the back, figure it out later, and not really worry about it. Trying to find. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. The starting grid, just so I can have it as we run through DraftKings. Is it updated? Yep. Kyle Larson starting 21st. So that's why I wanted to make sure that was
And
that was good.
glory. That's a wonderful spot to get in on him.
Yeah, so that's it's a good number. He's gonna be very popular, but that's okay. So let's dive into the
real quick about the starting grid. They're doing it based off last week's race, it seems like. So or the stand, like a combination of last week's race and the current year's standings, I believe.
Yeah, Bob Pockris tweeted about it yesterday. I'm trying to find it because it was really so it 50% on last week's finish, 35% on owner points, and 15% on fastest lap ranking from last week. So that's how they figured out this week's race.
Okay.
So let's jump into it. We got Ryan Blaney at the top, 10-7, starting second. Love Ryan Blaney. Yeah, when we jump over and talk betting, I think will be somebody that I mean, he's already on your card, I believe.
Yep.
Might be on my card. Can't get to him on DraftKings. Kyle Larson, 10-5, I think is going to be very popular and with good reason. I think he can absolutely win this race starting 21st. Tons of movement points, tons of fastest lap points. Dominates some laps towards the end. Makes a lot of sense. Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin. If we stay right with those four, obviously Larson's compelling. Hamlin, 10-1, is that somebody that you would consider starting 15th?
I mean, absolutely. If this runs like a super speedway, like it's looking, he's been the best at Daytona, which this is that's the track that people are comparing this to, just a smaller Daytona. Yeah. And so, I mean, starting 15th, that for a guy who traditionally runs inside the top 5 at that kind of race, would probably be the first guy I would go to, even skipping a Larson at 10-5. Wow.
And that might be the good way to do it, because I feel like Larson Hamlin would be an easy boom boom, and then just kind of figure out with a bunch of guys in the back later.
Oh, because there's going to be a ton of value for this race.
100%. Even as we dip into the 9K range, we got Logano, Busch, Harvick, Byron, and then Truex starting 26th at 9.2 is pretty compelling.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what their ownership levels are with kind of the recent non-success or recent performances of the Toyotas, because other than, I think it was Auto Club, they haven't run well this season. So maybe you get a lot of people realizing that and thinking, oh, their car or their manufacturer just sucks this year, and they avoid them in contests.
Yeah, but Truex even last week looked pretty good until he wrecked out.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They can't, for some reason, they're unlucky this year too.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is going to be the race where we want to target our favorite guys from, I think, this range. As we dive down into the 8K range, we got Alex Bowman, Keselowski, Kurt Busch. Briscoe's an automatic cross-off. I love Ross Chastain, but he starting 7th can't get there.
Yeah.
I found Christopher Bell 27th starting at 7,700 I could get to. Almirola, love him at super speedways, but 7,600 starting 10th. Woof. I'd much rather go to Austin Dillon. Much rather go to Bubba Wallace.
I'd much rather go to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Woo!
So
like, look at that value right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go with the all Angle of Pursuit effed over roster here and go with Christopher Bell and Ricky Stenhouse right there, starting 27th and 28th.
Do we have to put Keselowski in the lineup at that point? If he's the one effing us over?
Well, I mean, he was running fairly quick at Daytona until he was the one that caused all the crashes, but
8,600 starting 24th. Like, you could reasonably start your lineup down here and be just fine. Just ignore everybody else above 9K.
Well, if you go one driver further past Stenhouse, like, you have 3 guys that were constantly on: Eric Jones, Stenhouse, and Christopher Bell, all starting 23rd or lower.
Yep.
In a super speedway type race, which the outcomes are so varied.
I mean, even Michael McDowell starting 29th at 6,600 makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Cole Custer, Justin Haley. Haley's been kind of annoying, but Gilliland, 25th. I like him. Corey LaJoy. See if he can keep no, it was Kaz Gralla that had the tire issue.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One thing of note too, I did want to hit on this, so maybe this will play into maybe DFS, but probably more so betting. Ross Chastain, I believe, is running in the Truck Series for this race today, so that's going to give him a good indication of like how the track is going to run, not necessarily vehicles because they're completely different, but he'll be able to find maybe the groove he likes, or just going to get a sense of the way the track runs.
Yeah.
And I think it was him, Kurt Busch, Chris Buescher, Denny Hamlin, and maybe like one or two other drivers who were testing here way back in November. So they have previous experience running the track as well.
Nice. Yeah, anytime you can be out on the track and just get a little bit of comfort, even if mentally, just so you're not overthinking the grooves and stuff, that's going to be helpful. Okay. It's time to do what we always do. Let's build a lineup, Brian, and I will give you the tee yet again. Lead us off. Who is the first driver finding a home in our lineup?
Let's go Denny Hamlin, 10-1, starting 15th.
And let's start there, and let's avoid Kyle Larson. Let's avoid some of the names up here, and let's scroll down. I'm going to throw in Recce Spinouts.
Oh, man. Put me on the spot here. All right. After Spinouts, I got to go Bubba Wallace. He excels at these kinds of races that do not require a lot of braking or braking at all. So I love Bubba at this track starting 19th.
Because we love to slam our head against the wall repeatedly, Christopher Bell.
Well, I mean, it's going to pop eventually, at least as long as we keep telling ourselves that.
We convince ourselves enough, it'll work.
Yeah.
So we have about 9K per driver. Obviously, don't have to use it all or even half of that. We can get real aggressive. We can get somewhat aggressive.
Let's go back up to the top of the board. I wanna recheck. I mean, you could sneak Larson in there. I mean,
let's see what it looks like. So put Larson in there.
7,300 still.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can win the race, so I think that's a good number. And then we go down. So McDowell makes sense starting 29th. I like him. I don't hate Custer starting 20th. Harrison Burton starting 31st. I know he ended up upside down, but before he was upside down, was actually running pretty well.
Yeah, and he was one of Keselowski's victims, by the way, at the 500.
Let's throw him in there. 6,400. Save about $1,000. Give ourselves a little bit of difference. I like this lineup quite a bit.
That's incredible. Think about the difference of this like lineup build as opposed to a regular 1.5 mile track where you're probably trying to get two guys starting inside that top 15 or so.
Yep. And honestly, like if you want to get real aggressive, some of the names down here could be fun. Leave a few thousand on the table and see what you can put together. That worked at Daytona. It's worked at super speedways in the past. So you really want to treat this race like that. So just load up on the guys in the back, figure it out later. But I really like what we did here. So I will save this and I will make sure to enter it this week, Brian, so we can actually find out how we did.
I also too, what's interesting is, so they're going to be doing the competition caution, I think, again this week at like lap 20.
Okay.
So of course, even if you had the guy that started at the top of the field, most people are probably going to pit, and that's going to F over whatever the running order was at that particular time. So like I said, you're not going to get somebody lead the entire first stage here.
Yep. Are you ready to talk some betting odds?
Oh yeah.
Let's throw that up there and we can start at the top. And, with the competition cautions, with the things we've seen the past few weeks, pits are going to be critical for keeping people on the lead lap, for keeping people near the front.
Don't get me started on Blaney.
Between Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, and Ricky Stenhouse, don't speed through the pits.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot. Like if you have a good crew, you do the right things, you can make up some serious ground there. So, that is something we kind of have to think about going forward. We got Kyle Larson, still your favorite. Still love 10-1. I'm not sure that I would be going inside 10-1 at a super speedway light type course. I know he has
Even so, he's been so dominant at pretty much every track. I know he doesn't perform that good at super speedways, but I mean, he is like the Jeff Gordon of NASCAR right now in that he's just dominating every race. And anytime you can get him at close to double digits, like it's almost a must bet at that point.
Yep, totally agree.
Just to
Ryan
get
Blaney
exposure.
starting second, 10-1 still feels like a good number. I'd be happily bet. Denny Hamlin 12. That's a fun number. Load all those so we can have them. Logano, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch at 14 is a fun number.
I can't quit William Byron at 15 either.
Yeah. So if we're looking inside kind of that 15-1 towards the top, William Byron at 15 is pretty compelling. It's interesting to see Bowman kind of get some of the little bit of credit that we think he should probably get based upon his success. But we talk about him all the time. His ceiling is right where he's priced, but his floor is a lot lower.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
so if we get his peak, 15-1's a decent price, but kind of interesting. So for me, it's Larson, and then it would be probably between Hamlin or Byron in this section. I think I'll take Hamlin at 12. Like that seems like a good number.
That's a great number. I've been on him all year, and I mean I'm going to bet him every week until he finally hits, and maybe even after that. But Ryan Blaney at 10-1, he's been the best driver according to NASCAR. He has the highest driver rating by a significant amount, and not only that, he's led, I think, something around he's run over 70 something percent of his laps inside the top 15. Like this dude has been amazing outside of being wrecked by Brad Keselowski or his pit crew completely effing up. So
how does he fail this week? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't even want to think about it because I can already see it happening. We're coming down to the final few laps. It's like a super speedway. People are getting frisky in the back of the pack. We get a late caution on the restart. He gets effed over and winds up losing. I don't
like it. Let's keep scrolling. We got Harvick at 15, 16, depending on where you look. Tyler Reddick. That's still
an interesting number.
Yeah. Briscoe 18 feels like an overreaction to last week. Almirola at 25. I don't hate.
Yeah.
I was a little dubious. I think he was like 20 or 22 when we talked last. 25 is a much better number, especially since he's starting in the top 10. I think that could be a number I find myself getting towards. Bubba at 28, I would be interested in. 18 and 20, I'm not interested in at all.
No.
25, I could get to. Austin Dillon at 30. No. Okay.
I don't know if I can get to him to win the race. Yeah. I don't know why, but that 40-1 on Bell, like I said, I added it earlier in the week. That just seems too inflated for me. And then I'm gonna go back to him, Busher. I got him at 70 earlier in the week, 70-1. I mean, I'd still bet it at that 60-1 number because he does do really good at the super speedways. Like he was right there in the Daytona 500 until Keselowski crashed him out. So Busher at such a long number. I mean, we see McDowell win it from that exact number at 66-1 last year's Daytona 500, and then Cindric was something like 33-1 for the 500. So
yeah,
I think this is a good race too to kind of pepper the board with small unit plays.
Yep. I think in this range too, you take
because there is no guarantee here.
Mm-hmm. Even Eric Jones, if you can get him at 50, I think is fine. Cole Custer, I mean, it feels like a little.
Custer is
it feels like
has the ability to run at the top.
Harrison Burton at 100, I don't hate that. He's looking really good in the 500.
Yeah. I will say one of the guys, you were on him last week, but that's Chastain at, I think he's 25-1.
Yeah. Yeah, at 25 I could get there.
Like he was the third fastest car in terms of total speed rankings, according to our buddy Ryan over at iFantasy Race at Daytona. He's finished third and second the last 2 races. I mean, you could see the skill is there.
Yeah.
And he's avoiding contact for the most part this year.
100%. 100%. I'm looking up Chastain's numbers at super speedways. Yeah, didn't run great in the Daytona, but typically runs okay. But I think he's just making tremendous strides as a driver. So, and he's got a better car. Let's flip over and look at DraftKings and look at kind of some of their numbers, both just for like placings and whatnot. So we got Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson. Any of these numbers, top threes and or top fives, jumping out to you as compelling options?
It's hard to get to those top threes because, like what happened to Blaney at the 500, I mean, when those top 2 people are battling for position at the end, all it takes is a little bit of contact and somebody slips right past them.
Yeah.
So I'm more inclined to go with the top 5 numbers. And I mean, getting a top 5 at over plus money for a guy like Blaney or Larson, I think makes too much sense. Denny Hamlin too at plus 150.
Yep.
But honestly, I'd rather sneak down further down the board and go a little bit risky with a Chastain at 3-1 to the top 5 or a Bubba Wallace like at plus 250, because we've seen it where they run in that position, but maybe not necessarily have the ability or the kind of experience in these kind of races to make the move necessary to win.
Yep, I think that makes sense. Almirola 3-1 to top 5 is very compelling. Chastain 3-1 to top 5. Austin Dillon 3.5 to 1 to top 5. Christopher Bell 4.5 to 1 to top 5.
Yeah, but can we like that's the thing? Are we going to get there with him again, or?
I mean, I feel like he's too good of a driver to just.
At least that's what we keep telling ourselves. Is he?
Oh, yeah, we tell us maybe he's not. Maybe we're telling ourselves a story, and a story that's just not going to come to fruition.
Yeah, and we're only believing our narrative of the story at this point.
I mean, you have to convince yourself sometimes when you're making these bets, because you have to say, okay, how does this work out? How does the story work? And this is how it's going to work. But then it sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Almirola minus 125 to top 10 is a fine bet. Eric Jones top 10, 125. I like that. Stenhouse at even money. I like that. Like this row, I could just pepper the board in this range right here and be fine.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. This week's top 10 market is one that I'll definitely have a lot of play in, just because there's a lot of guys who have the potential, and you may hit all of them. I mean, as long as you're not betting 15 guys to top 10,
yeah,
you have a good shot of hitting a couple of these.
Yeah, and like I've done the math. Depending on how many you bet, you hit a couple, you break even. Depending, and then obviously the more you hit, the better you're gonna do. So you take 5, but if you put $100 on them all, you hit 2. You are you're pretty dang close to breaking even, depending on which 2. And then if you get to 3, then you're feeling even better. And then obviously the more you hit, the better. So, okay. Anything else in this range? I was going to throw up some props and stuff to see if there's anything juicy sitting out there. But I think in terms of top 5s, top 10s, that kind of stuff, we've kind of got our ducks in a row.
I mean, like Daniel Suarez plus 180 to top 10.
Yeah.
He's been fine this year.
And he's really good at super speedways.
Yeah, obviously that's kind of a newer team, that Trackhouse team, but Chastain has the speed, so I don't see why Suarez can't also run similarly at this track.
100%. Let's go.
It is interesting, real quick before we get off there. Bubba Wallace minus 140 to top 10. That to me is a good indication that the books are already assuming he's gonna run inside that number. So why wouldn't you escalate that into a top 5 wager at plus 250 as opposed to laying the extra juice to get him inside the top 10? I would much rather get almost triple the money on him to move up five spots.
Yeah, if you're gonna get it on him, that's a good way. He is a little bit more popular just because of his name and the Jordan brand and stuff. But no, I think that's a great kind of way of thinking. Is okay. Well, if I like Bubba Wallace this week, and I minus 140 is fine, and I wouldn't blame anybody who took that. But if I can, go to top 5 and get way better number, then I will do that. Same goes with, okay, look at the outright, go down to the top 3. It's not really that good of it's too much of a jump.
Yeah.
And then so I'll jump to top 5 and give myself a little more wiggle room for not that really worse of a number. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's kind of how our brains work. We got a few matchups we can look at. I'm always interested to see how the juice moves throughout the week. So we got Briscoe versus Reddick, pretty even. Hamlin versus Elliott. Larson versus Blaney. This is the show bet. I'm on Larson. You're on Blaney. Bubba Wallace. I kind of like Stenhouser.
Dude, I don't know why they do that all the time.
Get our money. That's what they do. I was really hoping I could find some. Here's some more matchups. I was really hoping to find that caution prop, but
I got
Bowman versus Byron. That feels right. Eric Jones. I know McDowell's a little bit cheaper, but I think that's the right side. Harrison Burton over Cole Custer. I see myself getting there. I'm actually going to add that right now.
I like that. Yeah, if you go a little bit further down the board, there's one that I really like this week, and I feel like it's underpriced based on their results, like their finishing positions, and that's William Byron versus Kevin Harvick. Yeah, Kevin Harvick is again Mr. Consistent Mediocre, like Mr. Mediocre Consistent. He's never going to compete for a race win, but he's finishing inside the top 10 or near that spot, whereas Byron has a few poor finishes, but Byron's car has clearly been the better of the two, and he has better pace. He's showing the ability to actually compete inside the top 3 on a consistent basis. So I feel as long as he's not caught up in the big one, or that SOB number 6 car avoids him on the race on Sunday, I feel like Byron should finish ahead of Harvick.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I'm trying to update our. Go ahead.
As far as like the race props, like cautions and all that stuff, I've noticed they normally drop those a few hours before race time because they know there's going to be a
hammered
ton
on
of money on those. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Fill with orange. Okay. Should we flip over and look at the bet tracker and break down our bets for the week?
Yeah, let's check it out.
Okay, so this is where we're at and what we're up to. So I have Kyle Larson at 10-1 on the outright market, Christopher Bell at 40, and Ricky Stenhouse at 40, both for half a unit. I have Almirola at a top 5, Austin Dillon to top 5, Christopher Bell to top 5. And stop me if you've heard this before. Christopher Bell to top 10, Stenhouse to top 10, and Austin Dillon to top 10. All at plus money, all at pretty good numbers. I'm putting a unit on each. I feel really good about that. Justin Haley to top 10, 3-1. I put a half a unit. I have Eric Jones over Michael McDowell. I have Ross Chastain over Kurt Busch. And I have Harrison Burton over Cole Custer. Those are all minus 110 when I got it. And my crazy wonky let's get loose prop of the week, Kyle Larson and Lewis Hamilton both win. Parlayed 32-1, baby.
Man.
I haven't looked at the qualifying yet, so I don't know what the current odds are. But if you can get 30-1 on 2 drivers who I feel super confident about, I think you got to do it.
Yeah. I don't blame you there, especially because Lewis Hamilton has been kind of him and Verstappen are basically the only 2 guys that ever compete at the top of those races, especially the opening race of the season.
Okay, Brian, break it down for everybody. What's on your card? Are you there? I think Brian's frozen or can't hear me. So Brian has Blaney at 10-1. He has Byron at 15-1. He has Christopher Bell at 40. He has Ricky Stenhouse at 40. He has Chris Buescher at 70. He has,
damn right. Sorry, my audio cut out.
Yeah, I was like, Brian, do you want to talk? And you're like, just staring. So, yeah. So finish out your card and tell everybody where you're at.
Yeah. So picking up where Kyle left off with Buescher at 70-1. Like I said, he's too good of a driver at super speedways to pass up that kind of number for that kind of potential payout. And in that vein, going with him at a top 10 at almost 3-1 earlier in the week makes too much sense. Just like Kyle, Christopher Bell, I can't quit him. He's like my new addiction. Top 10 plus 140 for 2 units. I feel like it, as long as he avoids the problems, there's no reason to think he can't run there consistently. Chastain, the top 10 at pretty close to even money. I'm not too happy that it's not at even, especially his past history at these kind of tracks, but he's been running too well not to get here. And then Eric Jones, the top 10, I just added this one at plus 125. He's fast at super speedways. I just love what he does at these kinds of tracks. And then, like I said, Bubba at top 5 plus 250. Give me that all day, every day. That's too good a value. There's no reason I'm going to lay juice on a top 10 there. And then like I said, we have the show bet, Blaney versus Larson. Blaney will win the race, hopefully. I had Cindric over Keselowski. Big Bad Brad can suck it. And then Blaney over Logano, my weekly wager, which I'll be doing that every week as long as I can get it at that minus 110 number. And then, as I said, Byron over Harvick, as William Byron, to me, has a shot to win the race, whereas Harvick, no chance.
I like it. I'm going to add the show bet to my side as well, just for 4 gigs. Okay, Brian, we talked some DFS. We talked some betting. We updated our card. I guess there's only one thing left to do. It's time to talk about our best bets for the Folds of Honor QuickTrip 500. And I will scroll down and let you go first.
All right. So I said I wasn't too happy getting here. So I was thinking about going Chastain because it's a little bit safer, but I don't like being safe, as you can tell by my previous week's betting cards of getting a little bit too heavy. So I'm going to go with my buddy, who I've recently learned how to pronounce his name at the end of last year, and that's Chris Buescher, to top 10 at plus 270 as my best bet of the Folds of Honor QuickTrip 500.
Love it. I love where your head's at. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to be a little bit safer last week. Last week I tried to pick the outright winner, and that was just not the move.
It's because you trusted Logano.
It's true. It's very, very true. I'm gonna play it safe. Christopher Bell, top 10, plus 140, plus money on a driver that we both really like.
Oh,
obviously,
yeah,
I'm on the outright market. Obviously, I'm in the top 5 market. But that top 10 number is that's too nice. So can't wait for him to wreck in like the lap 3, and then I just have to watch all the other cars just race all day while he sits in the garage. But at that number, I can't help myself. Brian Twining, enjoy the race. Enjoy March Madness. Enjoy F1. Like, we just have so much. I hope your team loses in a big fiery blaze. Go Bucks. We'll talk to you guys next time.